This is the GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is flyer number 415, part 2, entitled Earning Men's Respect. Carrying straight on. Women have always been parasites of men. Women evolved to be parasites of men, since human infants evolved to have such large skulls to encase their large brains that women had to give birth to them prematurely, so that the baby's head could pass through the birth canal and continue to grow in size after the birth, making the baby functionally useless at birth, and hence needed full-time care from the mother, which tied her down to the home cave, which meant that only men went out into the world to hunt and bring back scarce male-hunted meat to his woman in order to obtain sex from her. Thus women evolved to be prostitutes to men, bribing men with sex in exchange for scarce male-hunted meat. The human female is the sexiest of mammals in the sense that she is in sexual heat every day of the menstrual month, thus better able to bribe men with sex, to persuade men to part with their scarce male-hunted meat in order to feel the ecstasy that comes with ejaculating inside a woman. Those women who evolved to be in sexual heat for more days of the month than most other women were better able to bribe men with access to their cunts, and thus ate more meat than the other women, so were more likely to survive, so were selected for in evolutionary terms. Over time, all women evolved to be in sexual heat every day of the month, thus women evolved to be prostitutes to men. The chief asset and source of attraction to men in women are women's vaginas. If there's no sex with a woman, then from the man's point of view, he will have little interest in that woman. Her conversation to him is mostly boring. He sees women being interested in things that bore him. He sees women as talking small, with little interest in the outside world, the bigger picture, and is quickly bored by the narrowness of women's perspective. One only has to look at women's magazines to see the narrowness of interest in women, to see that. All women know that the quickest way to get rid of an undesirable boyfriend is for her to stop the sex. He will then be gone within a week. Men are forced to be nice to women because they want to penis women. But over the past generation, with food much cheaper and delicious, women have allowed themselves to get fat. 40% of women are obese and 30% are fat, so 2/3 of women have turned into spherical land whales who are sexually repulsive to men. That is, 2/3 of women have made themselves unfuckable, so pay a very heavy price. They are incapable of attracting the sexual interest of quality men who do make the effort to stay slim and sexually attractive. The fatter a woman is, the lower is her SMV, that's sexual marketplace value. As women get fatter and fatter, the higher is the level of contempt coming from the slim, health-conscious, quality males towards these unfuckable female land whales. The more these fat, unfuckable female land whales try to persuade themselves that fat is beautiful, or love my personality, not my packaging, the greater is the level of contempt for these deluded fuss, that's fat, unfuckable females, expressed by the slim, quality males. When a slim, quality male sees a fuff, in a tenth of a second, he crosses her off as a potential sexual partner, expressing the yuck reaction to himself, looking away from the sickening tub of lard crossing his path, thinking, quote, God, how could any man want to put his dick in that sexually repulsive land whale? Exclamation mark, question mark. Women are fatter than men, although not by a lot. 40% of women in many countries are obese, compared to about 35% of men. So this gives some hope to fuffs. A fat male has no hope of sexually attracting a slim, pretty female who has a high SMV. A woman with a low SMV who is fat or obese will only be able to attract a man of low SMV, since a man with high SMV will not look twice at a fuff, who to him is sexually repulsive and hence will be immediately rejected by him. Since now 2/3 of women are fat or obese, it is understandable for ego defense reasons that such women are motivated to believe that fat is beautiful. But to quality men who are slim and health conscious, such deluded rationale coming from the fat or obese feminazis is merely a source of contempt for these quality males, who then merely reinforce their contempt and condescension towards such fuffs and do not give them the time of day. Such women are quickly dismissed and ignored by men with high SMV, seen as being beneath contempt. When masculine scientists hear feminists who complain about men's privilege, they tend to sneer at the level of scientific and mathematical ignorance of these feminists. Most feminists, in brackets, and 80% of women in general, are what the masculists call fluffy crappers. That is, women who choose to study fluffy crap at high school. That is, the soft option. Intellectually easy, intellectually lazy, memory-based majors that do not require abstract thought, as with the hard option where one has to think, as with math and the sciences. Not studying math will preclude these fluffy crappers from studying STEM, that's science, tech, engineering, math, and the professions at college. So these fluffy crappers end up with a fluffy crap diploma that the economy does not pay well for, so that these fluffy crappers then look around for some gullible manslave when she is in her 30s with her biological clock ticking hard, to pay for her to live in a middle-class house raising her kids with him paying for it all. Masculists have a contempt for such fluffies, seeing them as manslavers and hence as slavers and hence to be hated. When feminists then claim that men should not be condescending towards women, that men should not be male chauvinist pigs towards women, that then masculist scientists merely sneer at such feminazi ignorance and incompetence. Masculist numerate scientists know that women are intellectually inferior to men on average and can even calculate the proportion of men to women at a given IQ level. To do this, one merely needs the average, or mean, IQ and the standard deviation, in brackets, a measure of the spread outness of the IQ scores in a population, in order to calculate the formula for the IQ probability distribution, commonly known as the IQ bell curve. Men have a 4 IQ point greater average IQ than women, and a 10% higher IQ variance than women. The standard deviation is easily calculated from the variance by simply square rooting it. Once one knows the male/female means and standard deviations, one can obtain the male/female bell curves and then use them to predict the proportion of men to women at various IQ levels. For example, the IQ needed to get a bachelor degree in math, a master's in math, a PhD in math, to be a junior professor in math, to be a full professor in math, to win a Fields Medal or an Abel Prize in math, brackets, which is the math equivalent of a Science Nobel Prize. When one performs these calculations, as I have, one predicts that only about 10% of women have an IQ necessary to be full profs in math, and that only one woman per century will win a Fields Medal or an Abel Prize. How do these theoretically derived predictions match with empirical reality? Pretty well. From my own experience at some dozen universities that I've been associated with over my academic career as a prof in math, physics and computing, I would say that about 10% of the full profs in these three fields were women. And in reality, only one woman has ever won the Fields Medal, and only one woman, a different woman, has won the Abel Prize. Thus one can, in capital letters, calculate why women greatly underperform men at the genius level, and hence why women contribute so little to world culture. Women have two X chromosomes in their cells, so the recessive genes in their two X chromosomes are not expressed, that is, used. There are many more recessive genes in a population than dominant genes. So with men who only have one X chromosome in their cells, the recessive genes on their one X chromosome are much more likely to be expressed, since the Y chromosome in men's cells is tiny, about a sixth the size of the X chromosome. Thus, over a whole population, men will express a greater variety of genes than will women. That is, men will have a GMV, that is, a greater male variance than women. This is a very general biological phenomenon, holding for any dimorphic species, that is, where the male and female bodies differ in shape. Most feminists are both innumerate and iscyanate, being mostly fluffy crackers, so know nothing about such things. So even when a masculist, scientist/mathematician, mansplains such things to them, it usually just wafts over their pretty little heads, since these iscyanate, innumerate feminists lack the intellectual ability to absorb and understand the level of intellectual and mathematical abstraction needed to fully comprehend what the masculist scientist is telling them. To masculist scientists, this iscyanacy and innumeracy of most feminists merely increases the level of contempt and condescension they have for women, and for these feminists in particular. In other words, elite males, particularly masculist scientists, feel justified in their contempt for women's inferior intellects and women's greatly inferior performance track record. So when feminists talk about male privilege and male chauvinism, masculist scientists merely reinforce their negative attitudes towards such feminist, iscyanate and innumerate ignorance. The bottom line in all the discussion above is that elite males who are genetically superior to women feel justified in their negative attitudes towards women's inferior intellects, women's greatly inferior performance track record. As simple confirmation of this, simply look at the term great man. Everyone is familiar with this term, whereas the term great woman sounds almost like an oxymoron. Women have won a pathetic 1% of science Nobel Prizes. Women build nothing, invent nothing, create nothing. Women have always been parasites of men. Soon women will lose their two traditional monopolies of vagina and womb, with the sex bots coming out now, with their luscious curves, their film star faces, their creamy, grippy vaginas that women cannot compete with. And Japanese scientists have already grown a goat in an art womb, that's artificial womb. So when men soon can grow their own kids and prefer to sex their bots rather than obese, sexually repulsive fuffs, then men will no longer be forced to be nice to women in order to penis them. So men will become much ruder to women, more condescending towards women, treating women with the status level that they deserve, that is, as the inferior sex, who contribute so little to world culture, who are about to lose their two traditional monopolies. Once that happens, if feminists continue to sprout their iscyanate, innumerate, fairy garbage of male privilege, male chauvinism, male condescension towards women, then men will no longer be motivated to be nice to women and will be far more objective with women concerning women's genetic inferiorities, sneering at them, ignoring them, especially the sexually repulsive obese ones, and harangue the feminists for their deluded, misandrous lies, chewing them up with very negative truths that women are not men's equals, that women contribute almost nothing to world culture, that women are dumber than men, who build nothing, invent nothing, create nothing, who parasite off men's labour and money, and hence deserve their inferior status that they have always had in society. As the Masculists and MGTOW movements continue to spread across the world, men will increasingly become intolerant towards these feminazi claims of male privilege, etc., and will gender politically harangue these feminazi peasants, these effeminate, innumerate peasants, out of the room. Masculine scientists particularly are fed up with the PC bullshit coming out of the mouths of these feminazi peasants and intellectually crush them when they come across it. Feminists and women in general are going to feel that they have been hit by a bus, the masculist bus, this decade, as more and more men become familiar with masculist arguments and then express their contempt and derision